Welcome. You're listening to The Lauren Epstein Show. I'll be with you in just a minute. As my guest, I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. First, a word from our generous and good-looking sponsors. You don't want to miss Beyond HR Forum, being held June 11th and 12th, 2020 in Amsterdam, where you will meet inspiring, forward-looking, and impactful leaders in human resources. Once again, the team at Beyond has selected a great venue, the historic Kramhauthal. It reflects their values of designing a unique space and atmosphere that brings forth intimacy, collaboration, inspiration, and partnership with HR thought leaders from leading companies around the world. The forum moves beyond the current HR to guide you along a journey that progressive leaders in HR are invited to embark upon. Join remarkable guests as they share their insights on how to make humanity the ultimate value to organizations, societies, and the world. This is more than just an event. It's a one-of-a-kind opportunity to inspire your thinking to go beyond and reach the unreachable. For more information and to register, please visit www.beyondhrforum.com. Last year, I met the folks at Tribe.ai. I spoke to co-founder Naomi Davidson, who just blew me away with her origin story. She grew up in a poor and unstable home, didn't graduate from high school, and pretty much raised herself, doing the best she could. Eventually, she got a job and put herself through community college. Wouldn't you know it, she graduated from Berkeley and got a master's degree in mechanical engineering from MIT. I love personal stories like this. As the global head of strategy at LinkedIn, Naomi shared her methods with others, which was a huge success. She and her partner Thomas are paying it forward so others can succeed in life. They built a learning system in partnership with Stanford and Wharton universities. They know what it's like to create something extraordinary from nothing. Tribe's latest development leads your team through daily, personalized micro-coaching. With an 85% adoption rate, this mobile application has users saying, wow. Get your free month of Tribe today. Go to trybe.ai/Lauren, L-O-R-N-E, to receive this fantastic deal. Listen to a few of their users to hear for yourself.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Mwonsa. I'm a fourth-year medical student applying to OBGYN residency, and what I love most about Tribe is that it's not magic. It's a coaching tool that empowers you to coach yourself. Even after the course is done, it's like a sharp knife that allows you to sculpt your life perfectly with the vision you intend. But it's your vision, your hand, your time, your sweat.
Hi, my name is Brenda. I'm a director of engineering and program management at Outward. Tribe forces you to think immediate at what you can actually accomplish within the next 24 hours. Therefore, Tribe acts as a guide and helps you map out small, realistic steps in your journey towards the greater change you're aspiring, and helps you to realize and acknowledge your small wins and celebrate them.
Hi, welcome back to another episode of The Lauren Epstein Show, and we are partnered in this episode with Beyond HR Forum, which is going to be happening on June 11th and 12th in Amsterdam. It's an excellent conference. Very curated group. I think only 300 or 400 CHROs and executives of companies that are specifically working on HR are going to be meeting and talking about high-level HR stuff. I believe McKinsey is a kind of a sponsor, a big partner of that conference, as well as some other companies. And today we are going to talk to a published author, someone who's worked with some of the major institutions in our country and in hers, Dr. Janet Shaner. I'd like to welcome Dr. Shaner to the show. She is an expert in learning, networking, and managing organizations, as well as she's a very experienced workshop facilitator and writer. She has more than 20 years of experience in management education and has worked with IMD, INSEAD, and Harvard. Janet is a networking expert, and she wrote a book about it. So her recently published book, which is entitled Networking, Coffee, Not Cocktails, which I love, is available on Amazon and probably elsewhere. And if you want to follow Dr. Shaner, she's on Twitter at Janet_Shaner. Dr. Shaner, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lauren.
And as you know, our audience are all these HR leaders, and we were talking about, the value of networking. And through your book is kind of talked about, well, what's the value of your network as you become an executive? How does it change as you kind of move up the I don't want to say move up the food chain, but move up the hierarchy in an organization? That's a better phrase.
Maybe let me start just with a little bit of background. Why do I think networking is interesting for this particular audience? Actually, for any audience, but why is it relevant? So we often think that networking is just about going to cocktail parties and meeting people. But in fact, it's a lot more complicated than that. And there's a lot of research to support how does networking work in different situations. So for example, in answer to your specific question about how does it change as you go up the ladder, when I'm new in an organization, my key approach is I'm not considered legitimate. I need to establish my legitimacy. So I need to find mentors to help me out, to move me into the organization. But as I go up and establish my credibility, I have much more flexibility in being able to have what's described as an open network, but in being able to contact a whole range of people to gather information to support my initiatives. So I think what's really interesting is, as you say, thinking about how does it work in different stages of my career, in different, if I've moved to a new country or joined a new group, thinking about how all those things fit together to be sure my networking approach is aligned with my own situation.
That's great. I love how you frame that. And when I'm networking as an executive or an experienced professional, obviously I've gotten here and I have a network, right? So what are some of the finer nuances that you would tell somebody with a lot of experience and a big network that they can do to maximize the effect of their networking? Because a lot of your book is really about kind of that networking effect.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So the first key is asking yourself, what's my objective? So depending on what is your objective, that depends on how you're going to leverage your network to achieve that objective. Or in a specific situation, you might, let's say I'll give a couple of examples. If innovation is my objective, well, then I'm going to try and use the part of my network that is diverse, that maybe reaches outside my organization, that helps me connect different sorts of ideas together to generate new thoughts, new combinations. In contrast, then if I want to commercialize that innovation, I want to use the part of my network that's more connected, because when people are connected and they have a sense of trust, then they're much more willing to take those ideas and spend the time together to figure out how to make those ideas work. Again, in answer to your question, it's thinking about, yes, now I've got a big network. Probably I have different features of that network. What is it that I need to achieve? And then what's the approach, or which parts of my network do I need to use in order to achieve my objective? I
like that. I like that you're kind of looking at your whole network and then categorizing it in kind of like a map. Like, this part of my network is good for A, B, and C. And I'm guessing, do you talk about that in your book?
Exactly. Let's say the academic research is based on what's called social network analysis. And there's tools and there's a methodology by which you can say, list all the people in your network, how are they connected? And you can draw, exactly as you said, you can draw a map. Mm-hmm. And then the interesting part is, okay, let me look at my map and see, what does it look like? What are its characteristics? And then what's its fit with what I need to accomplish? So yes, in the book, there's even specific details about if you want to draw your map, there's directions that you can do that yourself. So
can you give me, you're piquing my curiosity. So what is an example of a use case? Let's just say I'm the CHRO of a Fortune 100 company, and I've got 5,000 or 6,000 people in my LinkedIn network. Right.
You have a big LinkedIn network.
I've got a big LinkedIn network.
You got a monstrous LinkedIn network.
Pure. I'm in my 40s, 50s, and I've been doing this for a while. You know, give me a sense of, like, an example of what I would do. You can even be more specific with the use case, but I'm just giving you a sense of, like, if this is the kind of person I was, how would I go about using my LinkedIn network and mapping that out, just so I can get a sense of what you mean?
Yeah, a couple of things. I might actually say that your LinkedIn network may or may not be reflective of exactly, let's say, your closer personal network. By that, I mean, sometimes we connect with a lot of people on LinkedIn, and sometimes we don't connect with, say, for example, I'm not connected with my family on LinkedIn, but they may, in fact, be part of my network. Or I might not be connected with my closest friends on LinkedIn or my closest colleagues, but in fact, they're part of my network.
Sure.
But you've asked specifically, how would I map it or how would I think about it?
Yeah.
So you think about, well, who are you could list 10, 20, 30 people in my network who are going to help me respond to the need that I have. You ask a question like, who helps me generate new business ideas? Who helps me understand?
Well, let's ask a question. So let's say it's the CHRO. So a question might be, I'm a CHRO. One of my challenges now is hiring people, right? I need to get some really brilliant ideas on how I can hire more people or get the word out about my organization hiring people. So you're suggesting I go to my network. And when you say network, I like how you kind of distinguish LinkedIn perhaps from other networks. And maybe we can talk about like, how do you kind of mush them all together? But I go to my LinkedIn network and then what would I do? Would I just kind of look for people who I think are what? To answer that particular question.
If your question is, I want new ideas about how to hire people, then you might think about who else is in a similar sort of situation. Are there other HR executives in my network? Are there people trying to do talent attraction? So, for example, I have a lot of experience in business schools. Business schools also do talent attraction for their programs. Are there other types of organizations by which you might know people, but who are doing similar sorts of things who could help you generate new ideas?
I like that idea because it sounds like, just in taking it apart, unpacking it a little bit, instead of going to the one person who may have a solution, you're going to one person who may have heard a bunch of solutions and found one that worked for them, or has 3 or 4 or 5 and be willing to share them with you. And doesn't have an agenda to sell you something.
No, not at all. So there, if you're generating new ideas, it's a good idea to search for diversity. So you don't want to, you can look for people similar to you. This would be fine. But then I'd also be looking for people in diverse types of organizations who have, let's say, similar sorts of problems, but who could help you generate new ideas.
Right.
And so again, now.
So if I'm a food and beverage company, maybe go to an auto company or a technology company.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. I like that. That's a very clear use case on how I can use my network. Now, your premise of your book title is coffee, not cocktails. My interpretation of that is like, coffee is about having a serious conversation. Cocktails is about having fun. Is that the theme?
I would say yes. So networks are fundamentally about building relationships with other people. And let's say, especially over the longer term or to deepen a relationship, that happens more often in a relaxed setting. So I use coffee as the example, but one-on-one in a relaxed setting, taking more time. A specific reason I chose that title is we often associate networking with cocktails. It's a one-off thing. It's very transactional. It's let me exchange business cards and that's it. But in fact, when you look at the research, it's a lot more about building relationships with people, spending time with them, bringing energy to that relationship. And so it's really a lot more about the relationship building than the transactional approach.
So what are some of the ways that executives who are busy, right, and probably have a lot of demands on their time and might be more judicious in how they give it out, how can they build relationships? Because I actually find a lot of people who are, C-level executives are kind of isolated.
First of all, identify what it is, let's say, that you're passionate about or that you want to learn about or kind of that you want to have an exchange with people about. And then I would say proactively identify people whom you want exchange with on particular topics.
I see. Okay. There's
some other, for example, Adam Grant's written a book called Give and Take. Instead of thinking I have to proactively, go out and meet people, you can also build relationships by helping other people. When they ask you for help, helping them out. You can build relationships by asking for help from other people. So I think it's just being intentional. If you say, I need to learn something, I want to meet new people, I want to deepen my relationships, it's being intentional about what you want to do in an authentic way.
Is there any distinction between, I know we're kind of hopping around here a little bit, but between men and women in how they develop their networks at the executive level?
Yes. So there's research that says there's differences in men and women in the beginning. So this isn't at the executive level, but I'll start in the beginning. In the beginning, whenever you're a minority in an organization, and this could be women, this could be a foreigner, this could be someone of a different racial background.
Right.
Let's say the majority can get all of their relationship needs met by their peers.
Right.
So we'll give a stereotypical example, but let's say white men. There's lots of white men in many organizations, so they can be all of the above: friends, colleagues, advice givers. They trust each other so that they can have all of their needs met by this same group. Whereas people who in the minority group of some sort, let's say their friends tend to be similar to them, but they need to go to the majority group somehow for advice or support or referring them up the organization. And so let's say women, for example, would be an example of this. Their friends are women, but because the majority in the organization is men, they need men to mentor them, to give them advice, to help them understand how the organization works. Now, as you go up the organization, anybody higher up has more legitimacy in what they're doing. So they can have a different network approach. But I would say anybody, if women remain in the minority at the executive level, they still face this issue of needing to have a more diverse network to get all of their needs met.
Now, that's interesting because I'd say that over the last maybe 5 years, I've heard from my men colleagues who are leaders that they are reluctant to mentor women, not because they don't want to help, but because they're concerned about any kind of legal exposure or, concerns regarding the Me Too movement, right? That there's, and of course, this may just be edge cases and this may be something that just passes, but it is real for a lot of folks.
I would believe that that's real. Then I would say it's quite important for the organization to establish a culture that is rewarding performance and dealing with those specific issues, because that's really unfortunate for any group. If you want diversity in your organization, you need to establish an organizational culture that supports developing and promoting that diversity. And if you've got a psychological culture that doesn't do that, I think you need to deal with that first.
So perhaps a company would have a policy around mentoring and development of people that created guidelines, guardrails, perhaps, so that people felt comfortable, both men and women felt comfortable doing it. Because as a man, if I approached, say, a woman who just joined the organization and said, hey, would you like me to be your mentor? She may think something other than what I'm actually asking, right? So offering might be a little bit of a risk. But if there's a policy where, I'm being hypothetical, where the company, creates this whole system and the system puts us together, or the system gives that person a mentor, may or may not be me, then there's a lot less kind of that risk or that potential for something to happen that neither party may want.
I would say that sounds like a good approach. I hesitate. You're raising a completely valid issue.
I know,
and I hesitate to comment on it a bit because there's so many other factors involved. Then I would say it's really important for the organization to set the appropriate culture that allows everybody in the organization to develop in a correct and healthy way.
Let's get back to of course, networking is the point, right? So networking creates engagement. And I'm guessing that some of the things that come out of that are like trust and relationship. Do you want to speak into those things? Tell folks what you mean by the value of what are the outcomes, the good outcomes of networking?
The good outcomes of networking, it's always a classic answer. Well, it depends. So one piece of networking is gathering new information. So anytime you can create an environment where you can put kinds of diverse sorts of people together, maybe create cross-functional teams or create activities where people can exchange knowledge, that helps them generate new ideas. If your objective instead is to create more trust in your team or your organization, you can do things like team building activities or, intense retreats or things like that to help them build stronger relationships. We talked about the mentoring or so. If you want to create an onboarding program to help new people reach and extend and build their network, well, that's another approach to networking. So it's a way to say, there's different types of relationships. You can have what's called weak relationships, strong relationships. And the important thing is to think about, all right, given what it is that I'm trying to achieve, what different sorts of relationships do I either have or need to build? And as an organization, how can I help people to do that in a way that helps both the individuals and the group move forward in a good way?
That's really awesome. Is there any technology that would help me kind of create my network map or pull together all my resources so I have some piece of software that could support that, or is that not available yet?
Yeah. If you want to draw your network map, there's some more scientific graphing software. It's called UCINet. That helps you draw individual network maps.
So it's called UCINet?
UCINet, yeah, by a group called Analytic Technologies.
Cool.
There's also, I think there's a software now that you can draw your network on LinkedIn. Personally, I don't like that so much because, as you said, your LinkedIn connections can be so huge. For me, they become less interesting in kind of solving your organizational problems. Right.
So that's a great question. So how big of a network is manageable? Like what size of network do you feel comfortable with?
So it's sort of at different levels. We tend to have close relationships with like up to 15 people, maybe active relationships that you might call close up to 30 people. We can keep track of, I think the number's about 100 people. Mm-hmm. And then on LinkedIn, it's okay because anyway, you're connected in a database, and it's almost more like, what can I search of people that I've met before? Mm. So I think it's, again, recognizing maybe there's different levels of your network. Mm-hmm. And just being cognizant of it, that your close relationships you want to spend time nurturing. Your LinkedIn relationships, if I've met somebody once, it's okay that we connect on LinkedIn and I don't have to do any more with that.
Right. Yeah, because what I see is that people connect with me on LinkedIn constantly that I don't know. Mm-hmm. That I don't know. And I've put in my mind this, and I know everyone's different. Some people are just like, I'm only going to have people in my network that I know and I've met. Mm-hmm. And I don't do that. I thought, okay, I'll just put in people in my network who I think are or who have some legitimacy in my mind. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much you're on LinkedIn, but it's very common now for people who are like fake accounts to actually, mm-hmm. Connect with you. What do you suggest? And I know you'll say it depends, but generally speaking, what would you suggest for someone to build a strong network?
Well, building a strong network means I've got to spend time with people. So I think LinkedIn isn't the place that you build a strong network. LinkedIn is how you stay connected with people. I think the other thing about LinkedIn, given that it's an opportunity actually for publicity. So in your situation, you'd want to promote your podcasts. Connecting with somebody on LinkedIn also allows them to receive your podcast feeds, which is a benefit. So again, depending on kind of what your approach is, personally, I connect only with people that I somehow have met or know who they are, mm-hmm. because that's the choice that I've made. But I would also see how in your situation, it would be absolutely make sense to connect to a broader audience, because it also helps you when you want to share information about your podcasts.
I don't think people are really, in my experience, and I can say I don't think I leverage my network the way you're describing. Have you seen some amazing results from people doing this?
I think people who understand maybe the different levels of networking or the different ways to approach it, then they're just more conscious in how they approach their relationship building. They approach it as, I'm going to meet somebody, maybe I'll get something out of it, maybe I won't. They're conscious, I'm moving to a new country or a new company, so I need to focus on this idea of referrals. They're conscious of, I need more trust in my team, so I'm going to do some kind of deepening network activities. So I think it's just because they're more conscious about it, they probably get more effective outcomes. I would say, have I seen people do it? I would say in my book, I've gathered quotes from people.
Yeah.
And you can see that some of the people who are, in my view, the most switched on are people who are, let's say, repeating naturally some of the stories and theories that I've shared with you.
And outside of, because I think of my network as all the people in my phone and all the people on LinkedIn. How do you kind of characterize, what do you, I guess I'm thinking, what are the first steps? I'm okay, I'm going to put together my network because I want to think about it in a way that makes sense. Okay.
The first question I'd ask is, why do you want to know? What objective are we trying to think about related to your network?
And so, that's a good question, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of I have all the same pressures and problems I've had yesterday. Nothing new. Yeah. But I want to know, what's the hidden gem in there? Okay.
So you ask yourself the question, who are all of the people whom I interact with regularly?
Yeah.
So write down, who are all the people whom you interact with regularly?
Right, which may be 20, 30 people.
Yeah, exactly. And so then what you do, you write them all down on the left-hand column. And then you say, okay, how are these people connected to each other? You write down A, B, C, D, E. And then you go through a chart that says, okay, does B know C? Yes, no. Does B know D? Yes, no. And so you go through this whole chart. And then you can map for yourself if you want, or put into this software, how are all those people connected? And then what does the picture look like?
Oh, okay.
And so then you can see for yourself, what does my picture look like? But then that's interesting in and of itself.
Sure, yeah.
But then the more interesting thing is, okay, well, so what? Is that good relative to the country that I live in? Is that good relative to the industry that I work in? Is that good relative to my position in the organization? Is that good relative to I need to seek new ideas or try to commercialize them? So the more interesting part comes in, how does it compare relative to what it is that I want to do with it?
Right. Yeah, that's great. I like that.
One of the times people think about their network is when they're doing a job search, for example. Okay, well, if I'm looking for a job in, X industry, well, do I know people in that industry? Or do these people know people in that industry? So if the answer is yes, that's great. If the answer is no, okay, well, I have some work to do.
Interesting. And can I ask, because we can talk for a bit longer, but I'm curious, how did you get into this? What was the impetus for you to be so engaged with networking?
Yeah, so I was working on a project. I worked at IMD at the time. I was working on a project where we were developing, let's say, a part of the program related to communities of practice. And the colleague I was working with said, well, social network analysis is the basis for this. So I started reading about it. And at the time I was studying for my doctorate. As I started reading about it, I thought, this is super interesting. Networking isn't just one thing. I think I really liked the it depends. And I just found it so interesting that, wow, if as a manager, I knew all of these things about networking and could apply it in a more, let's say, strategic or thoughtful way, would I be more effective in my outcomes? And so this was actually the theme of my doctoral research, and I applied it to a large multinational company. And in that particular setting, the answer was yes. When they're networking approaches aligned with, in this case, it was their country environment, their profitability was better.
Okay. So you aligned it to, and when you say better, what was the delta?
There wasn't a delta, but there was a significant correlation between having a network structure that aligned with the country environment they were working in, and then there was a positive correlation with their profitability.
Wow.
There was also a positive correlation when you had different, the composition of the network, when you had people who were your customers or suppliers, so who related positively to your profitability, that also had a positive correlation.
Okay. So, well, you're really asking interesting questions, like who in my network has a stake in my success?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question right there, right? I mean, then I can reach out to them and say, okay, hey, you have a stake in my success. How can you help me?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that was where the measure was profitability. If instead your measure was innovation somehow, then you'd want different people in your net. You'd want a much more diverse pool of people to help you generate the ideas.
Right.
And so this I found super interesting. Wow, if I could be much more intentional about aligning my objective with kind of the composition of my network, or using different parts of my network, would that relate to better outcomes? And at least in that study, the answer was yes. But you see this, in my book, I tried to highlight lots of different research where they showed what are these network elements, especially related to performance, and what did they find?
Where do you see, and kind of wrapping up, where do you see the future of networking as technology evolves, as people evolve?
I think networking still is fundamentally about building relationships. As we see with technology, the way we build relationships is expanding, or there's a number of different elements. I think technology helps us keep track of our network more effectively and potentially helps us broaden it, also by using video conferencing technology, things like that. But I think still in the end, the basis of, let's say, meeting people, spending time with people, having meaningful exchanges with them is what will keep our network growing.
I was watching a TED Talk, and it was a few years old, where I think it was Microsoft that had a virtual reality headset. And so this guy is on stage, and he has a virtual reality headset, and you can kind of see like a virtual world around him. And then he brought someone in who was across the street wearing the same technology, and so they can see each other, and they're having like a face-to-face meeting. It was really kind of fascinating. I don't know if that's what's going to be the future of our communication, but it was interesting to be able to have that full body presence. Like you and I are talking on the phone, and I can't see your, body language and those kinds of things, which engage me.
Yeah, I mean, clearly technology is changing how we build relationships. I looked at one study in the book, even young people whom we often associate, they build all their relationships over Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. There is research that says they also recognize the difference in something built over technology and something built in a face-to-face environment. And so I think it's, again, recognizing that technology maybe helps us expand the possibilities and then kind of seeing what technology is best for whatever kind of communication or relationship we want to build.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we can keep going, but we only have so much time. Any parting thoughts, Janet, before we say goodbye?
Parting thoughts, I would say building relationships is important, especially in business. We know that building relationships is important. Think carefully about how can you set up your networking activities or within the organization, helping people to build networks, depending on the objective you want to achieve and the culture and situation of your company, your country, and the individuals involved.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Janet, how can folks reach out to you if they want to follow up?
Website, www.top10learningsolutions.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. As you mentioned before, you can find my book on Amazon.
Wonderful. Janet, thank you so much. Thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And thanks for listening to another episode of The Lauren Epstein Show. We are partnered with the Beyond HR Forum, which is happening this June 2020. June 11th and 12th in Amsterdam. We highly recommend you go Google Beyond HR Forum and check out the conference. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Lauren Epstein Show. And now a word from our generous and good-looking sponsors. You don't want to miss Beyond HR Forum, being held June 11th and 12th, 2020 in Amsterdam, where you will meet inspiring, forward-looking, and impactful leaders in human resources. Once again, the team at Beyond has selected a great venue, the historic Kramhauthal. It reflects their values of designing a unique space and atmosphere that brings forth intimacy, collaboration, inspiration, and partnership with HR thought leaders from leading companies around the world. The forum moves beyond the current HR to guide you along a journey that progressive leaders in HR are invited to embark upon. Join remarkable guests as they share their insights on how to make humanity the ultimate value to organizations, societies, and the world. This is more than just an event. It's a one-of-a-kind opportunity to inspire your thinking to go beyond and reach the unreachable. For more information and to register, please visit www.beyondhrforum.com. Last year, I met the folks at Tribe.ai. I spoke to co-founder Naomi Davidson, who just blew me away with her origin story. She grew up in a poor and unstable home, didn't graduate from high school, and pretty much raised herself, doing the best she could. Eventually, she got a job and put herself through community college. Wouldn't you know it, she graduated from Berkeley and got a master's degree in mechanical engineering from MIT. I love personal stories like this. As the global head of strategy at LinkedIn, Naomi shared her methods with others, which was a huge success. She and her partner Thomas are paying it forward so others can succeed in life. They built a learning system in partnership with Stanford and Wharton universities. They know what it's like to create something extraordinary from nothing. Tribe's latest development leads your team through daily, personalized micro-coaching. With an 85% adoption rate, this mobile application has users saying, wow. Get your free month of Tribe today. Go to trybe.ai/Lorne, L-O-R-N-E, to receive this fantastic deal. Listen to a few of their users to hear for yourself.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Mwonsa. I'm a fourth-year medical student applying to OBGYN residency, and what I love most about Tribe is that it's not magic. It's a coaching tool that empowers you to coach yourself. Even after the course is done, it's like a sharp knife that allows you to sculpt your life perfectly with the vision you intend. But it's your vision, your hand, your time, your sweat.
Hi, my name is Brenda. I'm a director of engineering and program management at Outward. Tribe forces you to think immediate at what you can actually accomplish within the next 24 hours. Therefore, Tribe acts as a guide and helps you map out small, realistic steps in your journey towards the greater change you're aspiring, and helps you to realize and acknowledge your small wins and celebrate them.
If you want to sell more to HR and TA professionals, we can help you bring your brand into the ears of over 100,000 decision makers around the world. To advertise on this and other shows, contact us at lauren@laurenepstein.com. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show. Do me a favor and subscribe to the show on your preferred podcast player. You can get us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Play. And be sure to catch us on YouTube. Thanks.
The Lauren Epstein Show was produced and hosted by Lauren Epstein. Our show engineer and music creator is Afate Odai. This show is also copywritten by Electric Cow.